Well, hello there and welcome to the candy wallpapered upstairs hallway of the dollhouse for another reading from The Secret Language of Birthdays by Gary Goldschneider and Used Elfers for April 23rd, the day of adopted security. That's right. And here at the top of the page is a visual representational image of the day of adopted security. We have what appears to be what is it here? A ring with an upturned jewel and an aerialist interlinked. That's right. Does that speak to the day of adopted security? Hey, who's to say? Sometimes these images are rather enigmatic, so it's hard to make a connotation with why they chose as much. That said, not altogether all too important. I just like folks to see what's going on the page in front of me, off camera if you like. That said, what is important is it's April 23rd, and hence it's somebody's birthday. So if your birthday is April 23rd, I just want to say happy birthday. That's what's important. That said, sometimes these videos find folks late, and if that's the case, I just want to say I hope you had a happy birthday. But sometimes we get folks who drop in who just want to celebrate the day or find out more about the individual born on this day. And if that's why you're here, I just want to say hello, welcome, and I hope you enjoy yourself. Now, before I dive in with the read direct, something I like to do around these here parts, and that is roll some dice. That's right, this is the Diecast birthday broadcast, so I like to live up to the namesake. But if you just want to get to the read direct or you know what's going on, hey, just skip ahead in the chapters. That's why I throw them in for you. That said, I'll be here rolling dice because I do so more importantly for synchronicity's sake. And here I rolled us a 1 and a 3 for a 4. Now, what is synchronicity, you're probably wondering? Well, my friends, as I hear it told, the universe or the higher powers that be will oftentimes put things in our path to help us manifest our goals or realize our aspirations. So, but oftentimes in this life, as we're getting on with the errands of the job, we're often, rather narrow-sighted, if you like, or singular in mind. And so we might miss the things that come across our path that would lead us more towards what we're going for. So how do we recognize these things? Well, we need a little bit of a signpost, if you like, a mutually agreed upon sign between us and the higher powers that be. That's right, your daily numbers. You don't have to go with what I rolled for you. The intention is there, but it's probably advisable you get your own set of dice if you want to try this out, all right? So outside of looking for your numbers, you can kind of let the universe take the wheel and drive, if you like. You set up time limits with which to go in certain directions and also ascribe directional values to number sets, say north for 1 through 3, 4 through 6 for east, and so on. And you can even get into the weeds further with assigning evens and odds for yeses and nos or lefts and right. Now, it's all up to you and what you decide to establish, all right? But once you get all that figured out, hey, pick out a place that's near and dear to your heart, maybe the town square or someplace you haven't explored before, and then set out. Like I said, we got to get those blinders off and start seeing the things going on around us, because you never know, the day might start to take on a little bit of a theme. Take the giant ring and the aerialist, for instance. Hey, maybe you start noticing some things that symbolize as much on bus benches or advertisements, or maybe you see people doing flips in the park, I don't know, or giant rings of some sort, be them sculptures, the like. Hey, doesn't have to be the representational image, but it's things to be on the lookout for, because they might start crossing your path outside your daily numbers. That said, you see these things in your environment, hey, you know you're on the right path, all right? You might just be surprised at what you see. But for those of you who roll the dice 5, 6 times and you're not seeing anything, hey, never fret. Just keep going for a little while, all right? Take some pause, look around. Hey, you know what? No sooner do you go down to roll your next dice roll, maybe somebody comes up to you, asks what you're up to. Just let them know what you're doing. You're out here on your birthday trying to shake things up, see what the universe might have in store for you. Refer them to me. Say, this crazy loon on the internet suggested this. They might be apt to tell you it's crazy, but they might be apt to tell you it's crazy for a different reason. Maybe it's their birthday too, all right? And the universe lines you up to meet them. And hey, so maybe you made a new friend, and maybe they're apt to join you on the journey, which is great because, as I hear it told, the more people focused on the same thing, you're apt to beget greater results. All right, so get out there, make some new friends, see the universe align for you. See, taste, touch, smell, intuit, just a little bit of that happenstance. You might just see why I recommended it for you. All right, brought it into your world if you like. That said, I think you get the idea. So get out there and see some of the magic and enjoy yourself. Let's get into the read. That's why you're here. Your month is April. Your day is the 23rd. Your sign is 2 to 4 degrees Taurus of the Aries Taurus cusp. and your quality and element is fixed earth. All right, here we go. April 23rd, the day of adopted security. Those born on April 23 seek the best haven for their considerable talents and will not rest until they have established themselves under the auspices of a recognized or powerful organization. This does not necessarily mean that they will be employed directly by that organization, though it is often the case, but that organization will serve as a kind of patron for them, perhaps recommending them to others and opening doors. April 23 people can often be found marrying into a family which will take them under its wing. And those born on this day care little for an isolated life. They need to exert their power within a larger social sphere. And financial success and security are a paramount importance to them. Those in the arts, to say writers, journalists, and painters, or in business, to say manufacturers or shopkeepers, they rely on building a following which will year in and year out continue to buy their books or their products. April 23 people who perform a service, to say doctors, lawyers, and accountants, will carefully build a clientele, knowing that without, they are lost. And April 23 people manage to express themselves as individuals within the family or professional sphere, but they will never want to be so outspoken as to lose the support of the group with which they are involved. And in these respects, they are dependent on the goodwill and the trust of others. A danger exists to this much-needed security from their impulsive side, of the nature which craves excitement. And those born on this day may at times act rashly, jeopardizing their position. And if April 23 people are able to direct a longing for change and stimulation into their work, while keeping their personal lives in balance, they will succeed. And if not, they may disrupt both their business and their family life with all sorts of impulsive schemes. And April 23 people are more than happy to continue in a chosen activity for a lifetime. And if they repress their individuality too much, however, they run the risk of losing the interest of others. The trick for them is to regularly innovate and to bring to the fore well thought out new projects which will move them forward. And should they settle for a contended stick in the mud existence, they will be working at cross purposes with their own highly creative nature. An April 23 person often has a sharp, keen eye for the foibles of others and a very deep understanding of human character and motives. Care must be taken to use this highly insightful and incisive bent constructively, especially if teaching or parenting. In April 23 people must wield their considerable influence over others wisely, and from time to time exercise control over their nimble minds and their sharp tongues. Well, all right. Rather narrowly focused birthday breakdown today. I only say that because they really didn't dive into relationships, which might be like as a parent or a sibling, child, and the like, and how that relates to your life. They just kind of focused in on this social dynamic that you exude and how you flourish and succeed within it. Pretty interesting, though I like to see when they round it out a little bit more. So I like to provide a little bit of a commentary, talk about what we just read, kind of how it relates to the period writ large, what I found interesting, and maybe expand upon certain things, like specifically when we had a narrowly focused day, maybe branch out a little bit, add a little bit more if possible. No guarantee I do that, but let's just find out here. April 23, the day of adopted security. You're said to seek the best haven for your considerable talents and be someone who won't rest until you've established yourself as a notable individual. It's interesting that the reading claims it may be a larger entity or organization or a reputable family for that matter that will more often than not be integral in helping you achieve such ends. And I only make mention of this because it's such a specific and unique dynamic to make mention of. And that more than likely sets you apart from just about everyone else in the book as it happens. I'm sure it's in there some form of fashion, but here it's very pointed and specific. And I don't remember encountering this before in this kind of way. What's more, that same said social dynamic is an element of the Aries-Taurus cusp that continues to build and further signify a shift in personalities and priorities that have come with the transition on into Taurus out of Aries. There's still a certain kind of trademark Aries self-serving nature that I would say is baked into this. But I mean, it's there to be sure if we read, you don't even have to read between the lines. But the fact that your success and your security is almost inextricably linked to this social dynamic for your success, to say opening yourself up to the goodwill and the trust of others, as was mentioned in the breakdown, that seems to me like a showcase definitive element of this transition out of Aries and into Taurus. Most Aries folks wouldn't even consider as much, all right? It's actually suggested, reach out for help, be open to help, all right? Not here for you. Sounds like you get that in no small part. What's more, you seem to know and depend on the audience that you establish, or that you have to garner so as to persevere within your respective field. And so you aren't outspoken to the point that you necessarily alienate other people. And I say this because exerting influence, getting involved in other people's lives, and kind of fuddling around, being dictatorial in how people should live their lives, that's an Aries 3 issue that kept coming up. And in no small part, it also transitioned into the Aries-Taurus cusp. They kept getting the warning to stay out of people's lives, that you need to be very mindful of who you start to influence. Because there are folks that need it, and when they do, they'll end up worshiping you. But more often than not, you would arouse a kind of antagonism if you interfered in people's lives. And so it was warned against. Here, you seem to know all that, and you stay away from it because it might jeopardize your success. And this is the first day where they mention as much. So that sets you apart. All right. Also, as different is this mention of an impulsive nature with a longing for change and expression of your individuality, the likes of which there may also be an astrological sign or astrological reason for that we'll get to shortly. But I find this suggestion of constantly be innovating your efforts or otherwise chance falling off and it working against your creative nature to be very interesting, all right, as it's another unique issue that kind of comes up in this period. And there also may be a reason for it in an astrological sense. But it's also this keen eye that they said you have, this nimble mind and this sharp tongue that you have to be aware of. And you know what? That might also owe in no small part to what's going on astrologically. We'll just have to see as we move on into your numbers and your planets. All right, here we go. Let's get into it. Those born on the 23rd of the month are ruled by the number 5, as 2 + 3 = 5, and by the planet Mercury. And since Mercury represents quickness of thought and change, those born on this day must find a way to balance such energy with a strong need for security. And they may have to rein in those impulses which have them driving in the fast lane, impulses which are emphasized by the influence of Mars and Venus, the rulers of Aries and Taurus, respectively. Fortunately, the hard knocks that those ruled by the number 5 receive in life typically will have little lasting effect. All right, this is a little bit of a copy-paste job insofar as the qualities that kind of arise for Mercury, but they did have to personalize it here for you. They mentioned security. Hey, that's not a boilerplate word to get thrown in there. Also, these Aries-Taurus cusp entries, since Mars and Venus are in the mix, they do have to kind of contend with that, change up the copy. That said, probably getting ahead of myself. All that to say, they did personalize it for you, so you can't poo-poo that, I would say. But let's dive back into the commentary I have here. See if we can expand a little bit. The speedy planet Mercury and the number 5 for quickness of thought and change, and also a love for games and puzzles mentioned elsewhere in the book. And it says, and as you're still coupled to the influence of Mars and the Aries influence, perhaps this chief reason for the purported impulsive side of your nature, because it's got an adventuresome ambition baked in with Mars qualities. And it's also got a god of war-like aggression baked in there too. But we're kind of on the way out of Aries, so that influence might not be in there so much, though it may relate to that little bit of impulsiveness they mentioned. That said, Venus's energy is more of a love or a draw to harmony, a love of beauty, a more feminine, softer side. All right. And so that might be a reason for a softer, less intrusive dynamic with those in your life, despite a strong influence and that little bit of drive that Mars gives to it. But that having been said, Mars and Venus's energy, when they're coupled together, it realizes a certain kind of balance, considering the masculine and feminine energies. You know, a lot of times when I was first coming into this, I would think there'd be a conflict there, but apparently not. But with Mercury in the mix, hey, that might also be adding to this heightened sense of impulse. Maybe where Mars is kind of lacking because it's on the way out, Mercury's coming in with that quickness of thought and change, kind of adding things back into it in a different, less fiery kind of way. More of a driven, kind of chomping at the bit kind of way, or champing, depending upon how you like to say it. But for that reason, it's an interesting paradigm to consider all of this. And then, because there's just so many moving parts going on with these different kinds of energy in the mix. That said, the hard knocks aspect there for Mercury, pretty part and parcel boilerplate addition. But hey, maybe that applies to you. You notice that, hey, it seems like I took a pretty glaring defeat there in the realm of your life, but hey, maybe you rallied really quickly. To say if somebody else had been presented with the same situation, maybe it would take years for them to get over it. Who's to say? But that might be your power there. That might be something only you have because you're a Mercury day. That said, that's been your numbers and your planets. Hopefully we imparted a little bit more of something that seems to apply to you. Now maybe you know the reason why. But that said, let's move on to your tarot. That's right, one of the more eclectic of the new age metaphysical ideologies. But hey, it's here in the book. We don't have to take it home with us, start dealing out the cards. We can just see what it has to say and leave it here in the book. Oftentimes it serves as a metaphor for everything we just read. And it's kind of interesting how it seems to inform the breakdown in some cases. But other days, not so much. You know, it's on a cycle, so it can't all work out. That said, let's dive in and see what we got. The fifth card of the major arcana is the Hierophant, an interpreter of sacred mysteries who is symbolic of human understanding as well as faith. His knowledge is esoteric and he has an authority over things unseen. Favorable traits conferred by this card are self-assuredness, absence of doubt, and proper interpretation. Unfavorable traits are moralizing, bombast, and dogmatism. All right. Precious little said here. This is a copy-paste job. Sometimes they'll personalize the tarot. Well, maybe button it with a little bit of something that says, hey, this is how it relates. Not today. Let's see if I can pick up a little bit of the slack here for you. Maybe explain some things here or expand on it. The Hierophant, or the priest in more conventional terms, all right? Symbolic of human understanding and faith, they said. An esoteric knowledge and authority over things unseen, which I would say speaks to your creative talents, all right? That you're said to possess in these respective fields. Knowing how to also curry social favor for your pursuits. Can't poo-poo that enough. That is hard to do in this life, I would say. For some folks, it comes naturally, all right? A lot of other people, they aren't successful at all, even if they're applying the steps. They're investing themselves in tried and true methods of how to garner attention, get people to invest in their ideas. But they just falter because it's not really in the bargain for them. But for you, they say it's an intrinsic natural ability. That's how you garner your security. Hey, I would say that comes as some kind of sacred knowledge, all right? And they also said positives of self-confidence, that's needed to prosper rather in ways that other folks can't. Also negatives of moralizing and bombast, all right? Cutting folks down or kind of telling them how to live their life in an overly embellished way, if you like. They said dogmatism, chasing after your life almost as if it's a religion or the pursuits therein. Can be a bad look if you get into it too hot and too heavy. So perhaps the unchecked impulses that they mentioned there kind of coming in with Mars and Mercury facets, I would argue. Can't really see it any other way or what else that would apply to, but maybe that. So keep those in check if you can. That said, I would say this is a rather apt card. You kind of have to look between the lines and make some connections there. Some of these are a lot harder to do in that way. You're really reaching sometimes. But here I would say it wasn't too hard. Kind of informs the breakdown a bit. That said, that's been your tarot. Rather painless outside of my stifling commentary there. But otherwise, let's move on to your health. All right, here we go. April 23, people must be careful to prepare for their old age. All right, too often they sink into fixed, repetitive habits as they get older, which rob them of a youthful capacity for change and can literally cripple them. Therefore, continued mild to moderate exercise is advisable. Spending time with their grandchildren and or doing volunteer work with children will keep them lively and in touch with their youthful energies. And those born on this day are vulnerable to arthritis of all sorts, particularly of the neck. They are also prone to hearing loss and dizziness. In extreme cases, Meniere's syndrome, a kind of vertigo from what I read. Particularly with arthritis, a regular program of moderate physical exercise can stave off deterioration and stiffening of joints and maintain a greater degree of flexibility into old age. Their tastes in foods are quite sophisticated and wide-ranging, but their love of bread, butter, and pastries can be fatal. This desire for earth foods should be guided in the direction of cereals, rice, bulgur, and polenta. All right. Don't remember those particular food recommendations coming up, but very specific. Maybe take note of that. If they're bringing it up, maybe take note. That said, what I have to say. All right, let's get into the health here. You're said to sink into fixed habits, which may rob you of a youthful capacity to change. And I love the example of what's being conveyed through seemingly enigmatic copy here, though I'm not quite sure what they mean, all right? I assume it means avoid a sedentary lifestyle. And I only bring that up because it's come up for just about every day in the Aries Taurus cusp. Most Aries folks didn't have to worry about exercise because they were doers, all right? They were always getting after things, and typically with a Mars-ruled day, they get recommendations for strenuous, vigorous exercise. Well, guess what? With Aries, considering it was Mars-ruled, you'd think that would apply, right? Not at all. More often than not, when it was mentioned, moderate exercise. Ostensibly, they're getting all the vigorous exercise they need, just doing what they do naturally, all right? Here for you, mild to moderate, all right? I don't know what this focus on the elderly aspect was all about. Good to see. I would say that helps round things out, but an anomaly for sure. That doesn't come up very often, if ever. So I would say they must have ran into a bunch of people where this kind of thing applied writ large to the elder, the geriatric folks. Who's to say? It's an anomaly for sure. What else do we have here? Usually Mercury days are warned against chasing adventure too hard, all right? Due to broken bones and injury. They're always on the move, constant change and the like. Wasn't really brought up here today for you. Also wasn't brought up on the last Mercury day. So it's kind of interesting that that hasn't come up because it's very boilerplate in the rest of the book. Avoid the broken bones, all right? Temper it back on the adventure seeking. Not too much here for you. So maybe Mars and Venus are kind of hampering that a little bit. Who's to say? Just an interesting thing to bring up because it wasn't mentioned for you. What else do we have here? This focus on elderly issues, like I said, glaring anomaly, but potentially relevant. Because as I heard it told, they interviewed a lot of different people for each day, so they'll make common denominations for a lot of these generalities, if you like. Earthy food recommendations, those have been coming up the past few days. When with Aries writ large, they wouldn't really recommend foods specifically. It was kind of a glaring anomaly outside the book. And they wouldn't recommend exercise, like I said, but when it did come up, moderate. So interesting, we're diving back into the foods, a typical health entry. And that's what you got here today. And also interesting that they said you like the sophisticated fatty foods, ostensibly when you're kind of nudging elbows with the sophisticants or the folks that are going to make the security for you happen. All right. This came up the other Aries Taurus day too, or Aries Taurus Cusp day also. So I'm sure there's a little bit of that element baked in for them as well. But here for you, I would say it's the most pointed relation of that particular paradigm. So very specific for you. Just have to take my word for it. That said, what else? We have some body areas. Taurus, it's the ears, the palate, the throat. And for Aries, I think I said that was for Taurus, right? But for Aries, it's the head and the neck. And so a lot of times they would, not a lot of times, once or twice they got mentioned to mind, tooth decay, as well as chiropractic if you're getting messed up. Interesting here, they mentioned arthritis in the neck. I don't think, I usually think it's in the hands. I guess it could apply to the neck, but that's an Aries body area. So very interesting this came up. Hasn't come up for Aries at all. So maybe mind it. All right. And interesting, they didn't really talk too much about the throat, the palate, the thyroid. That's a Taurus body area. Also the cerebellum, if I remember correctly. So maybe take care of those too. All right. That's it. That's been your health. Let's move on to some advice. All right, here we go. Have more confidence in your ability to operate on your own and beware rather of becoming fixed, and try to be more flexible. Let your emotions out and follow your hunches. Balance your personal life. Don't be afraid to speak your minds, but be tactful as well as kind. All right. Interesting advice. I would say it was pretty applicable. There was a few days last week where it seemed like the advice was kind of going off off the rails. It didn't seem to apply. That said, I had to write what I had to say here in the book, so bear with me if I get stifled a little bit and lose my place. I didn't have room for it in the notebook. They said have more confidence in operating on your own. I would say don't be too dependent on the organizations or the like the families and the like that you have to garner your success from. Turn your ability to support in on yourself. I would say garner support from yourself. Interesting, this comes up because Aries folks, they tend to have the opposite. They're just always going after it for themselves, and they often get the recommendation to seek help from others. Be open to it. Not for you, it's a reversal. So maybe you do a little too much of that, all right? Despite the fact they said you've got self-confidence. So it was a thing in the tarot too. So, hey, you know what? You've got the power. You don't necessarily have to rely on that stuff for security. Just be open to it, I would say. Let's see here. Turn your ability. Sell yourself to yourself, I wrote. They said beware of becoming fixed, all right? They're kind of double drilling down here. So it must be a concern. Change is an intrinsic part of Mercury, so don't fight it, or your other strengths for that matter, okay? Because they said those folks, they kind of get brought down into individuality. Their creativity goes out the window if they're not always on the move and innovating. And that's pretty part and parcel for a Mercury day. Let your emotions out and follow your hunches, all right? They're attacking repression from a different angle here, I would say. I had a feeling that Mars and Venus emotions would be a factor. Usually those come out, though. Here, apparently, they're repressed to some extent. Maybe Mercury has some kind of influence on that. But I'm also surprised they didn't focus on it more, all right? They just really focused on this, industrial side of yourself, kind of getting out there. So it would have been nice if they could have expanded on that a little bit more. They definitely had room to do so. What else did I write here? Let your emotions out. We said that. Follow your hunches, they said. All right. Lean in on instinct versus impulse, it sounds like. Maybe a mind over heart kind of dynamic, perhaps. That is, if the emotions are coming into the fray there. But it sounds like that's all an internal kind of struggle from the sounds of it. So don't, let's see here. That's actually a very common through line in the book, at least towards the latter part of, say, Scorpio and the like. Impulse versus instinct was coming up a lot. So mind the impulse, kind of lean in on the instinct. That survival functions there. Or I think impulse is more survival. I don't know. It's a hard differentiation, but hey, we have to be mindful of what's going on and not just knee jerk it, right? Let's see, what else do we have here? They said balance your personal life, okay? Don't let work bleed into the home life, ostensibly, or vice versa, all right? The emotions at home, that you let out at home, maybe you start letting them out at work. That's a two-edged sword too. Versus you get home and you're repressed, or maybe you take out your work life that you couldn't take out at work on the family. I'm sure you get it. Yeah, maybe just mind that you can vent, but only take it so far, all right? Or maybe you let yourself be known a little bit more at work so that it doesn't bleed into your family life, I would assume. They said be kind, all right? So mind how you cut people down with your ability to identify their foibles with your sharp tongue and your keen eye and your nimble mind, they said. Very interesting. I like that they brought this stuff up. Ostensibly that Mercury quickness of thought, all right? But I'm guessing, all right? So that said, that's been your advice. A little all over the place, but hopefully you took something of value or got some kind of insight that maybe you forgot about, but you had arrived at yourself. I don't know. I don't want to take all the credit, all right? I'm not that insightful. That said, that's been your advice. Let's move on to your meditation. All right. Hey, it's your birthday. Get something to think about. Here we go. Real quick in and out with this one. There's a place to be alone. All right, one more time. There is a place to be alone. Oh, you know what? At first, I didn't quite understand this one for you. Now I think I do. Oh, I like this one for you. I do. That said, your birthday, your meditation, I'm not going to tell you why I think it is relevant. All right, that's for you to ponder. There is a place to be alone. All right, your meditation in the can. Let's move on to your strengths and your weaknesses. Let's see where you got the girth and where you're otherwise a little more atrophied in the bargain. All right, here we go. Your strengths. Let's see if we picked up on any of these. It says you're social. Yeah, I think we picked up on that. You're secure. Yeah, and you're careful. All right, I don't know that I picked up on careful so much. Maybe I'm just not being able to think of it at the moment. But your weaknesses, what could those be? Did we pick up on these? It says you're inflexible, anxious, and repressed. Anxious. I don't know. I picked up on that one so much. What do we got here? I'm messing up the transitions. Oh, but repressed. Yeah, they talked about it a little bit. Inflexible. I don't know about that one so much, but hey, they brought up that's like a standard Taurus kind of stubbornness, right? Anyway, a lot of times I like to argue, hey, our strengths can help us overcome our weaknesses, but our weaknesses rather can also be strengths. Let's see if I can make a case here today. How can our strengths help us overcome our weaknesses? You're social, secure, and careful. All right, hey, you already know how to ask for help or garner it from people. That's that social aspect. If you're having trouble, I would say you're probably not afraid to ask for it. But I know it's a pretty close to the vest kind of thing if we're trying to work on weaknesses. But hey, if you're able to garner money and support from people, you know what? Maybe it endears you more to them if you're asking for help with a personal thing. You're secure. All right. Hey, you know what? You've got a secure foundation. I would say you're going to be able to attack these weaknesses from a good place. All right. A place that you're not necessarily going to lose your footing from. All right. And even if you did, you know what? You're a Mercury day. You're going to recover from the hard knocks. So why not give it a shot? But you know what? If you're secure, you probably already know that and you're going after it anyway. All right. It says you're careful. All right. You take the time to figure out how you need to approach this thing in a secure manner, I would assume. All right. Otherwise, you wouldn't be secure. You know, if you're following that impulse too much, hey, you know what? You're going to get knocked down off your feet there. All right. I would assume that if you're working on yourself, you're not going to let that happen. Maybe that's something you only save for the outside world. That said, how could your weaknesses be strengths in and of themselves? Says you're inflexible. Hey, you know, sometimes, and this came up the other day as well, another Aries Taurus cusp day. If we're going into something, we're being inflexible, then we're going to realize the thing that we want to realize our way. And you're not going to be subject to change. All right. Now, I can see that as a weakness, but also if you're an innovative individual and you're not and you want to realize this vision to change things and come off as a dynamic, interesting perspective, you're not going to let folks get in there and change it up, all right? And oftentimes if there is a special dynamic like that and they let folks come in and speak their mind and it gets changed, Well, now it's not innovative anymore. So if you're not willing to kowtow to that or bend, I would say that's a strength. But we have to know that what we're going after is somehow relevant, I would say. So pick your poison there. Make sure that you're flexible when you need to be and inflexible when it's prudent. It says you're anxious. All right, how could that be a strength? I had to think about that, so I wrote it down, not fly by the seat of my pants. I would say it gives you a heightened awareness. All right, I know it probably didn't feel great, but hey, you know what? That's part of it. It's part of that fight or flight aspect there. Also gives you excess energy. The problem is it feels uncomfortable, I would say, but we need to learn how to channel it. Let's dive in on that anxiety and use it for something productive. A lot of times we just kind of suffer with such discomforts. Also redirect it. All right. See, also it prepares you. Okay. If you're afraid you're going to fall on your face, you won't be so secure. You're going to line things up in a careful manner so that you are prepared. All right. And so that even if you're anxious, you've done all the work, you can go into it and you be self-confident in the fact you're going to get things done. I also say is kind of like as an actor, you'd go into a scene and you're anxious, you're nervous. Well, a lot of times you think of that in terms of it's a bad thing. I'm not going to perform right. But it makes things more real, all right? It's this element you can drill down on and use to influence the performance because there's something going on, and acting is all about making things seem real, right? Well, use what's real, and that's part of it. I would actually chase the idea of I don't want this anymore, so let's ask for it. Because oftentimes when I would ask for it, I wouldn't get it. So the idea would be to psychosomatically, reverse it on myself. I don't want anxiety anymore, so I'm going to ask for it, and therefore it'll cancel itself out. It actually worked in those small part, but then I found that without it, you're kind of missing a little bit of something. So there's just there's an idea for you. All right, says you're repressed. All right, how could that be a strength? I would say you're reserved in no small part. Careful. All right, secure. Hey, that's a base of foundation to a certain extent. All right, that's also people aren't seeing behind the curtain too much. It lends a little bit of mystique to things, I would say. Also gives you time to focus on things, I would also say. All right. So I know they're saying repressed. Hey, sometimes things get bottled up and then they can't be excised properly, or when they do come out, it's in an explosion and that might cause fallout or damage because of the shrapnel. But hey, we just got to promote self-awareness, balance, and those are earmarked trademarks that go through the book writ large as a theme, though they didn't necessarily bring it up for you. It's just something to be mindful of. I don't know how I did as far as making my case that your strengths can help you overcome your weaknesses, but your weaknesses can also be strengths. But I think I did all right. A little bit of flounder in there. Hopefully you get the idea, though, all right? Just don't throw your weaknesses into the trash lock stock, okay? They're part of who you are. And let your strengths be used to overcome them if need be, or figure out how to adapt them into your life and use them to your benefit. That's right. That said, that's been your strengths and weaknesses. Let's move on to those born on this day. And when we get into those born on this day, something I like to do is use it as an opportunity to start thinking about our passions or our purpose in life. Because all too often I'll meet folks who are just kind of punching the time clock during the week. And then on the weekend, they're rallying so that they can do it again. And I don't think that's necessarily a great way to live, all right? And what's the motivation there outside of a vacation once in a while? And then maybe you're too anxious on vacation because you're thinking about work that's coming up in a week or whatever. So I think it's instrumental that we have a purpose or a passion in life. And oftentimes there's a lot of hard work that goes into even figuring out what that is. So hopefully here, we not only see who shares your company, but what they did to get in the book. And maybe that can serve as a means for us to start thinking about those particular things. What could our passion be? What could our purpose be? Because I think with that, it just makes life more fulfilling. So if there's anything I wish for someone on their birthday, it's to chasing after that, all right? That said, if you got that in your life already, well, then the hat I'm not wearing is off to you, all right? Let's just see who shares your company. Let's dive into it. And let's keep in mind this is the day of adopted security. So let's see if we've got some secure individuals. Does it live up to the title? We have William Shakespeare, the traditional birth date for the man, the British Elizabethan playwright responsible for works like Hamlet, Macbeth, King Lear, Othello, and Romeo and Juliet. Also a director, an actor, and a poet. We also have Catherine de Medici, French queen, Max Planck, a German theoretical physicist and a Nobel Prize winner for quantum mechanics. We also have Joseph M. Turner, British pre-impressionist painter, Sergei Prokofiev, a Russian composer and a pianist, Vladimir Nabokov, a Russian writer famous for a work by the name of Lolita, James A. Buchanan, a U.S. president, also Najio Marsh, a New Zealand mystery story writer, Shirley Temple Black, a child film actress, U.S. ambassador. Also, we have Roy Orbison, a rock and roll singer, songwriter, Bernadette Devlin, an Irish politician, Stephen A. Douglas, a U.S. representative and senator, and a Lincoln opponent and debater, Warren Spahn, a baseball pitcher, Cy Young Award winner also, and also 8-time National League wins leader and most Southpaw career wins, it says. So that may have changed. This was written back in the 90s. We have Chauncey Depew, a New York Central Railroad president, also a U.S. Senator of New York. And we also have Lester Pearson, a Canadian Nobel Prize winning prime minister. Also Bud Wilkinson, an Oklahoma college football coach, and 3 national titles, 47 game winning streak. Robert C. Wright, the GE Financial Services, NBC, and RCA head. Also George Steiner, economist, cultural historian of comparative literature professor, and responsible for a work by the name of Real Presences. Also Lee Majors, TV actor and of the $6 Million Man fame. And finally, Gail Goodrich, a basketball guard. All right, insofar as adopted security, maybe it didn't live up to the title, but I would say some of these individuals definitely leaned into finding the support they needed for their endeavors. All right, I do believe, I might be wrong, but I think William Shakespeare was supported in no small part to get his plays off the ground, as a for instance. I also can't imagine, Shirley Temple Black, the child actress, she probably had a studio behind her in no small part. Those kinds of things. You can say all that for the senators and the like also. People that they had to rally, get the money from to get them into office, all right? So does that apply to you? Hey, who's to say? But that said, that essentially rounds out your birthday reading, all right? Except to say your season is spring, your sign, once again, is Taurus of the Aries Taurus cusp, and your quality and elements is fixed earth, all right? I don't know that we made a claim for the aerial list interlocked with the ring, what that might signify for the day of adopted security. Like I said at the top, sometimes we can't make hide and hair of it. That said, this has been April 23rd, the Day of Adopted Security, from The Secret Language of Birthdays by Gary Goldschneider and Used Elfers. I have an affiliate link for this book down in the description right above a personal message I like to put together for the birthday boys and girls. If that's something that you're interested in checking out, either one of them, give it a look-see, all right? This book makes an excellent conversation starter for the likes of parties, all right? It says you're ingratiated with social circles, bringing people in to support you. Hey, maybe you need to get a party started off in an interesting, captivating way. Hey, you know what? This book is going to do it for you, for better or for worse, all right? So give it a think if you're interested. That said, book having been related, that's not what's important here. What's important here, like I said at the top, wishing you a happy birthday. So once again, you heard it here. Happy birthday, all right? And for everybody else who joined us, hey, I hope you enjoyed yourselves, learned something about that individual you were here to see, if the birthday read lined up for them. But I hope we see you for your birthday reading, all right? You're not alone either. We got to see what makes you tick, all right? That said, before I go, don't forget your daily numbers. Your 1 and your 3 for a 4. Get out there and let the universe show you it's with you on your path, all right? You see, taste, touch, smell, intuiting just a little bit of the happenstance. You're bound to see why I brought it up. And that's for people whose birthday it isn't, too, all right? Get out there, see what happens. That said, for birthday boys and girls, hey, keep doing what you're doing. Just know that even though you might encounter hardship, you're a Mercury day, all right? You're going to get back up in no short order, all right? So keep going. Make sure you let a little bit of your emotions out, all right? Don't bottle them up. That's never good. Never a good look, anyhow. I'm sure it doesn't do anything great for the anxiety that they're said to have as a weakness either. All right. So, but yeah, use it. Use it. All right. And don't live that sedentary lifestyle. It's bad for your joints in older age, apparently. So, that's no good. All right. So, keep going. Lean in on change. Sounds like that's going to be great for you. All right. And trust yourself too. You don't have to lean in on the help from others all the time. All right. So, any event, once more, happy birthday. Take care of yourselves.